brought to you by Melon, the #1 streaming platform on the planet, and it's so easy to use. You go live in just 3 clicks, and you go live simultaneously on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or your own custom servers, and they've got these great themes and overlays to make your stream look incredible. So click on the link in the description below to try them for free. Thanks, Melon. Guys, welcome to the Tom Ward Show, where we talk to the biggest creators in the world, and I've got Nev Shulman. Nev, do people still call you Nev? I want to call you Nev. Are people still doing this 10 years later?
First of all, I'm going to get business cards made that say Nev, but I should just spell it with like 3 E's, just to make sure everyone knows.
Yes.
And then underneath it, it's just going to say one of the biggest content creators in the world.
Buddy, you were there.
That's what you just called me. I love it. It's a great.
But you are. I mean, you were there from the beginning. You know what's funny? Before we get started, I was thinking about you, and we'll talk about your career and how you got started and everything. But, you know, you're a film guy, right? You formed a production company with your brother at 19. You were filming dance. You were a photographer, all this. And then you filmed your online romance and then in the cat and all this. Today, if you were a young Nev, you know, you're 17 today, you're going through a crazy whirlwind online romance. Mm-hmm. Do you even film it anymore, or do you just go, fuck it, I'm going to obviously start a YouTube channel and document it? Why would I make a movie?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's totally changed. I mean, where there used to be a whole world of long-form storytelling, I think nowadays young people, and for many good reasons, are much more inclined to tell stories in much shorter ways. It's funny though, because I have seen TikToks that have gone viral where there's sort of maybe 3 or 4 in a series where someone is saying, I'm flying here to meet this person I met online. Here's part 1 and then part 2. And so it ends up being, you know, maybe 15 or 20 minutes of content. But yeah, it's all broken down and sort of subdivided into these smaller, more digestible pockets. So yeah, I probably wouldn't make a feature-length documentary, and who knows if it would be as interesting and if it would have as much eyeballs now that it did then.
Yeah, it's just something I thought of. I'm like, I wonder what he would do now. You know, the kid watching this, do they start a movie, or do they just go, no, I'm just going to make 10-second TikToks, and eventually that'll be a long story. Just interesting how creativity's kind of changed with social media, and as content's getting shorter and shorter and shorter. But I was going to introduce you as saying, we know Nev from Catfish and also from Dancing with the Stars, which, by the way, you kicked ass on last year. Finished second place. Very good. But I was curious. So you obviously can dance. You're passionate about it. But you got your start when you and your brother started filming. You were filming contemporary dance. Was dance always in your life? Was that always a thing?
Yeah. I've been very fortunate that from a young age I was exposed to the arts. I grew up on the Upper West Side, very close to Lincoln Center, and just always loved the performing arts. I went to a music camp and took dance classes sort of throughout middle school and a little bit in high school. And when I got into filmmaking and photography, which was sort of by accident because my brother was really into filmmaking, and he went to NYU for film and got hired to make a video for some family friend's 60th birthday. And it was so great that they told all their friends. And then people started asking my brother to make their wedding and bar mitzvah videos. And he didn't want to do that. So he just sort of said, Nev, I think you want to try and figure this out. There's some money to make here, So I was lucky that my roommate in college was a filmmaker, and I hired him to help me make my first few videos, and then it kind of grew from there. But what was great was that because I then had the ability to, I had some equipment. I had some film equipment at the time, and a nice, a camera that I was taking pictures at events with. That meant that I could document a lot of my friends who were dancers in their companies, and offer that service for free. And for a lot of them, they didn't have a budget to record performances or make dance films. But I loved being around that art form, and with the equipment and the access, it kind of all worked out, and I ended up becoming sort of a very involved filmmaker, photographer in the New York City contemporary ballet and dance scene.
Which is interesting. So, everybody kind of knows the Catfish story, the movie that kind of started everything. But as you were filming that and stuff, I think I read it cost $30,000 to make. Were you making like decent money at the time doing the dance stuff and bar mitzvahs and shooting videos and that?
Yeah,
Were you making like
yeah,
a living at it?
yeah. I mean, I wasn't making any money doing dance stuff.
Oh, okay.
That was all sort of a passion project. No one really paid me for that. Um, but I was, you know, I was selling bar mitzvah montage packages with photography and a sort of event documentary for like 10 to 15 grand to, clients. And I was and hiring really talented filmmakers who my brother knew from NYU, who are now, many of whom are now very sort of well established, famous movie directors, um, to edit these things with me. And so, I wasn't like making millions of dollars, but I was enough to support my sort of fun lifestyle in New York City and have a cool studio downtown, like an office. Um, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I felt very, you know, uh, I felt like I was running a legitimate business, and it was great.
Yeah, and I think that's a good lesson too, because I just read again, I saw on Twitter just another article about it, but the kid's number one career aspiration is become a YouTuber. Like that's number one by far, and it has been for a long time. And I think people always think like, oh, I got to be a David Dobrik, or I've got to be the next
Right,
Addison Rae, or I got to be a famous TikToker. But they forget like I'm going to pay somebody to edit this video, and guess what? Somebody's going to pay someone 10 grand to film their bar mitzvah this weekend, and
right,
somebody needs to edit that and put it together in
yeah,
digestible form, right? And there is money to be made in that while pursuing kind of your other stuff.
yeah, for sure. I mean, and that sort of relates directly to, even with my brother and Henry, his uh, business partner. They were taking commercial work and doing all kinds of things for money, all the time, while they were also filming my strange internet relationship. And it really wasn't something that they thought would ever become financially viable, or even a completed project. It was just sort of this side thing. Um, and yeah, I mean, sometimes you that's what I tell actually a lot of people who often ask me for advice in terms of the world, how to break through in the world of television or production. Um, it's really just that you've got to keep working. A lot of people obviously want to commit themselves to one thing and work on it and do everything they can to make it happen, and ask their friends and family for money, and do crowd fundraising, and like that's great, and I commend those people. But there's also something to be said for the experience and exposure and the connections that you make and the people that you meet while you're just working, and how that can then actually accelerate and get you closer and quicker to where you want to be, than you might have thought. So it sort of when you zoom out and you're like, oh wow, I spent 3 years on that project and I was broke, and then I made it and it didn't really do what I hoped it would, or I could have been working and maybe that project wouldn't have happened, but I would have been further along, and now I and could have then made it bigger and better. And it's like hard to know kind of when those moments are. But I always tell people, yeah, if you can find a way to keep working and stay busy and make money and meet people, like that's always a good place to be.
Dude, I'm gonna make a TikTok of that. I mean, that's you're 100% on point. We're gonna chop it up and we're gonna put it on TikTok. So hopefully you're watching this on TikTok right now and listening to them. But you're so right because people ask me all the time, like, how do I start a YouTube channel? What do I do this? I just want to quit my job. I want to drop out of school. Whenever I hear I want to drop out of school, I'm like, fuck no. Are you
Right.
insane? The chances of a YouTube channel launching and making money for it to be a full time career are it's the odds are against you. Not to say that you shouldn't chase your dreams and do it, but you can also learn the skill set, which, by the way, you can make a career out of by learning this and crafting it
Yeah.
and doing these cool things. Like if the Catfish thing never became, a TV show and helped you blow up, okay, maybe that wasn't it, but you learned something, just like you said, from that experience that, hey, I kind of like the social media tie in there. Cool. Or I like
Yeah.
dating. There's something there. Maybe we should explore that more. You're so right. You can't see the future, where that will
Well,
lead you.
and just to kind of wrap that up, at least for me, I have a lot of opportunities that most people maybe don't have in terms of my platform, and because I was early to adopt all the social media platforms and work on growing them, I've had now for years a large platform and a lot of followers, and I'm constantly saying to myself, like, man, I should really focus on that and make more content and sort of monetize my social media, but that's just not what I'm good at. And so what it boils down to is people who are like, ooh, I want to, that person's making money on YouTube. Like, I want to do that. But you have to be possessed in order to succeed at anything. Even if you think there's a simple formula and it should be easy to follow, it isn't unless that is just absolutely with 100% of your being what you have to and want to be doing. And I think if you're not
I'm right.
possessed, then yeah, it doesn't just and you have to commit to it and you have to slog through it. And it's going to suck for a year or two or three, and it's not going to work. And you have to be willing to get through and over all of those obstacles and take the time before it could ever potentially work out. It's not just like, oh, that guy did it. I see what he does. I'm going to do it too. Like, that guy did a lot more before you started noticing him that you didn't see, and that's sort of the hard work.
Neat. You're just dropping life lessons on us. I mean, this is good shit. But you're so right. It doesn't happen overnight. I think that's also what makes you attractive too, is that you're not chasing that $10,000 Bang energy drink deal, which I'm sure you could do a million of deals
Right.
like that, right? And make a lot more money. It's out there if you choose to go that way. But I think what's cool
Right.
about you is you're not. You don't see you doing, and that's what I want to talk to, and we'll talk a little bit about in a bit about kind of what you're doing on TikTok and how you're using your platform from there. But what is the strategy? Because you go, okay, I got millions of followers. Because I'm going to put myself in your head right now. I'm going to go, okay, I got millions of followers, making a lot of money with MTV. Who knows how long that'll last? Eventually, people are going to get tired of. Eventually, people won't get catfished anymore. Who the fuck knows? But but 10 years
So
later, they still are, which I don't even get. But okay, what am I going to transition to? Should I use my following to what? Should I start becoming a vlogger? Should I start a family
yeah,
channel page? I mean, does that stuff really go through your head, or do you just go, look, I've been blessed with this crazy thing and I love doing it, and I'm just going to do
yeah.
things kind of in that world?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think about it a lot. Like, what could I or should I be doing with this opportunity? And I think the overexposure that we all have to talent and other people and the lives and businesses and worlds that they live in, while it's great, also creates a lot of unnecessary sort of pressure and expectations that we then put on ourselves. Well, oh my God, that guy's doing so much. I should be doing more. Why aren't I doing more? Um, and and for that reason, I think some people do try and in many cases kind of fail to create the same level of impact with their content that someone else might. Um, and so I kind of actually more lately than ever given myself permission to not feel as much pressure and not feel as bad that I'm not performing at the absolute peak level of social media and fan engagement, but to just share and create things that feel right and organic and natural for me. And I think that while it might have resulted in fewer opportunities and financial, successes, has also allowed me to really retain a very authentic perception.
Yep.
People don't think of me and think of a product or a brand or some sort of forced, phony thing. They just think of me and they feel like they know me and they can trust me. And even though sometimes I'm frustrated that isn't as sellable or monetizable than other things, uh, it feels good that I'm me and that people know exactly what they're going to get. I'm not trying to push stuff on them unless it's something that I actually really care about and want to share and get people turned on to. Um, and that I think that value over time ends up being greater than whatever
100%.
gigs I could have taken to make X thousands of dollars, for whatever the next bigger, better opportunity might be down the road, which I can't see, but I'm hoping is going to be there.
Yeah, and you're right. And you were kind of in the perfect time too, because think about it. If we go back to the conversation earlier, right? You come up now, you're a kid, you get your start on YouTube and TikTok, right? Now social media is your thing. So you do have to be there and you have to be showing up every
Right.
day and you can't take it off. Where you social media was part of it, but you also were kind of traditional media at the same time too, right? I had a show on
Yeah.
MTV. I'm going to have the show on MTV next week. The episode's going to come on whether or not I post on Twitter this week. So you were kind of in a good position where you you had both kind of working, right? Where you weren't solely reliant on social media like a typical influencer was or is. And I think that's how you've been able to kind of remain authentic and not having to take every brand deal that comes up, and you're not posting 70 times a day and we're like, oh, there he is fucking again. This is like the 10th post I saw on my feed today already.
Right.
You kind of keep them wanting more, which I think is a good strategy.
Yeah, and I've been lucky too. I've again through friendships and connections that I've made over the years. I've been able to as things have happened in my life that have meaningfully changed me, like getting married and having kids. It made sense to then say, hey, my wife and I have a kid now. There's a lot about parenting that we never knew, that no one ever told us. There's a lot about relationships that we're going through that people don't seem to be talking about. And so we ended up developing our own show for Facebook Watch that we did 4 seasons of, called We Need to Talk, which was great. And that, again, that was an opportunity that didn't necessarily come to us, but that we organically kind of created and produced with our friends, and ended up being both a moral victory, or I guess a sort of emotional win for us, but also financially successful. So that was great.
And let's give yourself a shout out, right? You guys won a Shorty Award, didn't you? Did you not?
That's
Were you
true.
like
Yeah, we
Family
did
of the Year or something?
something like that. Yeah, I forgot about that.
It's pretty good. I do my homework, buddy. That's very cool. And you just touched on something too, right? Hey, that's something organically we did. And it goes back to how you started too. It seems like you're an
Right.
entrepreneurial guy. You're not sitting around waiting for somebody to go, you're not waiting for Facebook to call, hey, I got an idea for a show for you. What do you think of this? No, you're
Right.
like, you're creative and you're coming up with that by yourself. Talk about how it how being entrepreneurial is almost necessary to that kind of creative life. Has it helped you a lot?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's I haven't never really thought about this before, so bear with me as I put this idea
Sorry, man. I
together.
don't know. Just
Well,
popped in
no,
my
I mean, I
head.
think that there's uh, entrepreneurial people, or there's entrepreneurial action, right, which is just start a business, or a business plan, pitch the plan, do all the steps required to become an entrepreneur and have a business. And then I think there's also just an entrepreneurial mindset, which is that you want to have ideas, and you want to share them and find people who might be able to collaborate with you or connect the dots that you can't connect. And I think you can always apply an entrepreneurial sort of mindset to your life, in terms of looking for things, talking to people, being open to people talking to you, and just sort of keeping yourself open to potential new business and or relationship or whatever opportunities. And I think I fall sort of more into that category. While I did start a business with my brother when I was 19, and that was, moderately successful. I didn't immediately want to then start another business, but after the show became a success, I remember I had a conversation with someone on an airplane who had said, "Hey, have you ever thought about writing a book?" And I hadn't. So I then took that and went and talked to my agent and said, "Hey, what do you think about writing a book?" And she said, "Well, let me plug you in with our literary department." And then I developed it, and I interviewed a bunch of writers and to help me with it. And I remember, this is another example, like as I was going to these meetings with writers, at the end of the 30 minutes or whatever, an hour that we were talking, I think I interviewed 5. I said, "Okay, great. Well, this was a really nice meeting. Would you mind sort of sending me a recap and your thoughts and kind of what you think this book could look like just like a paragraph or two kind of vision of what you think this could be?" And the response that I then got from my agent, from those writers' agents, was that, "Oh, well, we don't, we never ask our writers to provide any content after just a first meeting. Like, you'd have to hire them." And I thought, like, well, that's crazy. I'm not going to just hire someone without knowing if they're even understand what we're going to do. And there was one writer who did, and I liked what she wrote, and I hired her. Like, so I don't know. That's just like being confident enough to ask for things that maybe hadn't been asked for, and just push people to provide a little bit more than maybe what had been expected of them previously, is also kind of part of that entrepreneurial mindset that I think is a healthy thing to have.
Entrepreneur mindset, or maybe the right term I'm looking for is self-starter, right? You're sitting next to that guy on a plane. He says, "Hey, ever thought about writing a book?" Most people go, "Yeah, well, it seems like a lot of work, whatever."
Right.
But you actually took that and were proactive, right? Went to your agent, looked at writers, interacted with
Yeah.
them, kind of saw what was out there, asked the right questions. I think like you said before, that you need that obsession to succeed in anything. I think you also need to be a self-starter to be successful in anything, especially in this
Sure.
influencer
Well,
creator type world. No one's telling you to wake up and work.
right. I mean, the other thing that I think, maybe people our age are a bit more in tune with, at least for myself, that perhaps younger kids not as much. Although I take that back. Is like, I know when I need help. I know when I don't have the skills to do the thing I want to do, and I've become good at finding the people who can help me and convincing them that they should or will, and putting together a team around me that can help me get where I want to go when I know I wouldn't be able to do it without that. And I think that's a good skill to have. That it's hard to learn in any kind of classroom environment. You really just have to be, again, that's what I think kind of ties back into just working, right? Being around people, finding ones that you like who are good at things you're not good at, so that when you have a project you want to do, you say, "Oh, I know all the people I need for this, and I'm going to bring them together to make this happen, because I can't do it by myself."
Yeah, you're talking about the production company you formed with your brother. It just made me think of something I read where he said he was filming you like forever because he liked to. The quote was, "I like to film his outbursts," and
Yeah,
he was always including brushes with the NYPD. And I'm thinking, you seem so stable and such like
I know.
a nice guy. Like, how the hell were you getting in trouble as a kid like that?
Well, I think you could go back to that sort of entrepreneurial spirit, but just, but no, as a teenager, I was not not a big fan of authority. Not necessarily because I didn't respect authority, but because in most cases I felt like I knew better. That whatever I was doing, I was exactly what I should be doing, and if anyone tried to tell me it wasn't, they were wrong. Um, and so that kind of got me into a couple little snags. Nothing major, but you know, I've learned to rein that in and appreciate and um, you know, find the kind of acceptable ways to navigate my way through situations that might not appeal to me. Um, but you know, yeah, I was a little headstrong and a little impulsive, and that would sometimes get me in trouble.
Is running one of those things that helps you stay calm? I mean, congrats on the marathon, by the way.
Oh,
Incredible
thanks.
time.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I do find that running for me is more kind of about turning off. Weirdly, you know, I when I wake up in the morning, like my brain starts going very quickly over the any number of things that I should be doing or tasks I want to do or things I want to fix or you know, and it's a lot. And now with the kids, every morning, you know, the first thing you have to do is just get the kids dressed and ready for school and out the door.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
right. So for me, what I love about running is it's the one time and sort of space where yes, I have my phone with me, but I'm not looking at it. It's tucked away in my little sort of pocket, and it's just me and the 6 feet in front of me, and I don't listen to music. I just sort of
You don't
focus on
listen
my
to music?
breathing. No, first
Wow.
of all, I think it's well, running in New York City, you
Oh, it's
kind of have to.
different.
It's a little dangerous, I think, to not like have your
Sure.
all your senses. Um, but also, I don't know. I really just like being passing through space and I love to observe and see things and hear things and smell things, and just to use my sensory perception and not be in my head, but just be in the physical space. For me, that's such a release. That's such a break from my normal kind of head space. So that's why you know I love getting out there and running. And it turns out I'm actually just naturally a good runner, a long distance runner. So it's fun that I found something, you know, in my 30s, not later in life, but in my 30s that I'm good at. You know.
You know, I've run a couple marathons too, and you know, when you're training for it, you know, you've got those like 20-mile Sundays you got to do and stuff. Would you do those in the city? Like, would you run those long days in the city and like have to
I had.
stop at every red light and stuff?
Well, no. I mean, you obviously
You
find
go to the
your
park or
sort of
something, or
yeah, yeah. So there's a couple training runs that happen in Central Park, which is the best because it's beautiful, it's hilly, it's a great training place, and it's closed to traffic and it's beautiful. Um, but I also, you know, yeah, I have a few r- routes around Brooklyn, and for the most part, like I'm the crazy guy who just runs across the intersection, kind of like in between cars because I don't like
yeah, yeah.
stopping, and sometimes I get honked at. But I grew up in the city, and so I feel probably over, what's the word I'm looking for? An unhealthy sort of sense of confidence in my ability to weave through moving traffic. Um, and I'm pretty fast, so I kind of get away with it.
You know, let's. I want to talk about Catfish too, real quick. Everybody knows the show, everybody loves the show, so we don't have to talk too much about it. But I did have one question every time I watch an episode. How are people so gullible? I mean, do you look at, I mean, hold on. And to be fair, we're not in season one anymore. Okay. So I get it. Internet's new,
Right,
online
right.
dating's new. Okay. Catfish is a thing. Got it. We're like 10 years down the road.
I
Do you
know.
ever look at somebody and go, in what world would someone who looks like that go out with you? Have you ever had a boyfriend or a girlfriend who's looked like that? Like, let's have a reality check. Does that ever come pop in your
Yeah, of
brain?
course. I mean, of course, and you know that thought crosses my brain, but at the same time, um, both because I was myself, uh, you know, the victim of a catfish who
Sure.
told me, you know, looking back on my story, it was pretty ridiculous that like there was this 8-year-old painter who was a prolific artist and her older sister who owned a horse farm and was a virgin, and all these crazy stories they told me about their house burning down and the car crashing. It's like there's so, I mean, like looking back on it now, I can't
That's
believe
true.
I bought a minute of it. But what you have to remember is that when you come in as a viewer and you see the person and the person they think they're talking to, and you just
Yeah.
immediately make that flash judgment that like, oh, that could never be. What you're
Yeah.
missing are the tiny, tiny drops of relationship that dripped into that bucket over the course of 3 or 6 or 12 months that filled it and made it feel big and real, and created that connection and that attraction. And yeah, sure, if the person had just showed up out of nowhere and said, hey, I love you, I want to be with you, I'm sure that person would have said like, this is bullshit. But they started as friends, and they connected over something, and then it slowly grew. It's like, so you have to remember that there's a long kind of process, and you're just seeing the tip of an iceberg, and there's a whole uh, thing underneath the surface.
The one of the criticisms about the movie was that, hey, they knew that they were getting catfish early and they just kind of milked it so they could make a movie out of it. Do they say the same thing about the TV show? Like, there's no way, this is all a scam. This is not this. How could this really happen? Do people still say that?
I mean, I think a lot of people assume, sort of unfortunately, because the reality television category is so mired with totally fabricated, produced content, that our show has elements of falsity to it as well. Um, and I don't blame them for that. I mean, the word reality doesn't really mean what it should.
True.
Um, but I assure everyone, as I will right now, that we don't come up with the stories. Um, Cammy and I and Max and I, we never know what they are going into them. We've never heard anything about where we're going or what the story is. So the idea that we're able to make the show as authentically as possible, and let people say and do whatever they want. We never reshoot things. We never you know ask people to, like, we really do it as close to real as we can. So much so that, like, when we have production assistants who we hire in the cities where we fly, who work on with us, who generally have worked on other television productions that have come through their cities or towns before, we always get the same reaction on at the end of the first day, which is, "Whoa, I I can't believe how real this is," and they're shocked, because they hadn't worked on a show that really is just
Is real.
turn the cameras on and go, and let's see what happens.
You had a great TikTok. Everybody go follow him on TikTok. He's got a strong TikTok game. You've got
uh,
millions of followers. You're on TikTok. You had a great TikTok, and I think it had like 10 million views, and it said like, "How are people still getting catfish 10 years later?" And you had like
I
your head
know.
in your hand, but it's a valid question. Like, great show, great concept, great formula. How long can this go on for? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sort of most relatable response, which I've sort of used in the past, is, you know how many people play the lottery every week, and for how many weeks have they been playing the same number over and over again, and how many hundreds or thousands of dollars have they spent doing that over the course of their life, that if they just saved them, they'd have
yeah,
now 40 or 50 or $60,000 or more. Um, and so I think the answer is forever. I think people will always be
true.
attracted to the idea that they could be the lucky one, that somehow the universe is going to drop that golden goose in front of them, and that keeps them going, that gives them something to look forward to, whether you believe in God or something else. Like, for a lot of people, that hope and desire and fantasy, um, of having someone special that's just for them, that's the love of their life and their prince or princess charming, is hard to let go of. And I think, as long as the heart is vulnerable to flirtation and desire, people are always going to get tricked and duped and catfished.
And you're right that the want to hit the lottery and become rich, or to have somebody that looks like Brad Pitt fall in love with you,
Yeah.
and they're rich too, and they're handsome, and that also preys on people financially for the same thing, right? They want to be rich. And look at
Right.
this segue. Look at what I'm going to do right now,
Perfect.
Nev. This is
Perfect.
incredible.
I
How
see it. I
how are
see it.
people getting catfished financially, and what are you doing with Zelle to
Right.
prevent this?
Well, so to
It's
tie
pretty
in
cool.
everything we've said, the whole conversation is perfectly led to here. So an opportunity presented itself to me that felt like it made a lot of sense. Zelle wanted to do a PSA campaign on social media to help people avoid getting scammed. And they came to me, which felt like the right place to come. And of course,
Yep.
immediately I said, yes, this is great. People are often asking me about scams and fraud, and I don't necessarily know what to tell them. So for my own edification, and of course for that of others, I was excited to work with Zelle on this. So basically, we're creating 4 short TikToks, and that will also be shared on Instagram, and can be shared anywhere, really. The more people share them, the better. Just to kind of highlight the red flags around scams, because with more and more people now, especially young people, handling their finances, um, digitally on their phones,
Yep.
there is unfortunately a lot more vulnerability and opportunity for scammers to take advantage of that. So we really want people to know what to look out for and how to avoid it, and then what to do if they detect it or are suspicious of it or have it happen to them.
Well, of course, we're all going to rush right now, grab our phones, and go to TikTok and look for these and follow you. But in case the phone is not available close
Yeah.
by, what should people be looking out for? What are some common scams? I mean, how do kids get taken advantage of?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's different kinds of scams, obviously. There's consumer scams. We've all, I think, probably heard the your car's extended warranty scam. Um, there's bank scams. There's a lot of utility scams happening. So you'll get a call from what looks, even on your caller ID, like it's your utility company, and they'll tell you that there's a very urgent situation. Your power is about to get turned off. We see this especially around the holidays. Um, we just need you to make a payment right now so we can keep your gas or your electricity on. And of course, people have their family over. They're throwing a party. The last thing they want to do is have their power go out in an hour, right?
That's a good one.
It's a good one, right? So unfortunately, people fall for it, and it might not even be for that much money, right? It could be, oh, we just need $75 right now so we can keep you, and it happens. Obviously, there's also romance scams, which is something we've seen on the show, where you really think you're talking to someone. They invest months into building you up and getting you excited to finally meet them when they come back from their tour in Iraq, or when they finish their mission in South America, whatever it might be. And then the weekend comes that they're going to fly up there, and they say, "Oh my God, my ticket, my credit card got canceled. I can't buy my ticket. I need you to send me this money so I can buy the ticket. I need it now so that I can come right now, because that was the plan. And don't mess up our whole plan. We've been building towards this. Like, just send me the money now."
Bam.
And so what we see is a lot of themes, right? Like, scammers tend to use urgency and pressure, to force you to feel like you need to send the money fast. So that's something you should always watch out for in terms of red flags. But in terms of bank scams, similar to the utility scam, they'll tell you that your account's been locked, or that there's some potential fraud and they want to move your money to another account.
Ooh.
But a bank will never call you and ask you for your information. They have your information already. And if someone's asking you for your bank information, hang up and then call your bank so that you know you're speaking to the actual bank, and report it and make sure that, if there is any activity you should be suspicious of, that they know.
Hey, real
Um,
quick on that though, crypto. I've got crypto. I'm sure you do.
right,
Everybody's buying it. No one should know. No one should ask for your seed phrase.
right, yeah, that's a great
I'm
one.
sure kids.
Totally,
I'm sure kids are watching this buy crypto. Everybody's into Ethereum and Bitcoin and everything else. That's because I just saw on Twitter too. Somebody big. It was pretty cool. They came out and they said like, "I just got taken, man. I thought it was so
yeah,
and so, and I just lost a shitload of money. don't make the same mistake. And it wasn't some dummy. It was like, I forget who
Right.
it was. It was
Well, no,
somebody
I mean,
like,
look,
followed.
these scammers are very sophisticated. And again, they've been doing it over and over again. They know what works and what doesn't work. They fine tuned their shtick, um, and they're going to try as hard as they can to get you. So, look, and you don't have to be a gullible, naive person to get taken by, like you just said. So that's why we felt even more compelled that
Cool.
we should be on TikTok and on social media, putting this content out there so that not only are people getting actual tips, but also there's a conversation around it so that if you do get that call, you'll have heard someone say, "Oh, you got to watch out," and it'll just trigger that thought. Wait a second, let me just make sure this is legit. Let me take a second. Let me not get bullied or rushed into doing something that I'm not comfortable with because I know I'm not supposed to.
It's very cool you're doing that, man. Well, first of all, if it helps one person, it's time well
Yeah,
spent. And two, just selfishly for your own brand, I think I'm glad to see that. Like, this is a perfect,
yeah,
you're monetizing, it's on brand, it's authentic, it's also helping people, because at the end of the day, you are trying to help, and that comes across on the show is like, look, I'm trying to help you get to the bottom of things. Hey,
yeah,
hurt, I'm here with you. I'm holding your hand as we go through this. I think this is kind of the same message on Zell too. So I'm
yeah,
glad to see you getting deals like this. This is very cool.
yeah. I was really excited about it, and yeah, I hope I can keep doing it because it's just like I said, we're just scratching sort of the tip of the iceberg on what's happening now, and I'm certain moving forward as scammers get better and we all get more and more digitally connected, there's going to be new opportunities for people to get taken advantage of. So I'd like to sort of stay at the front of this conversation and hopefully, help as many people as I can.
Good stuff, brother. Anything else you want to promote? I mean, you had a late flight last night. You've hung with us for 45 minutes. I appreciate it. I'm sure there's a million other things you want to do. I hear kids in the
Well, yeah, I've
background.
got a
I
crying
appreciate your
baby
time.
here. I've got a yeah. No, I mean I'm excited to be on the show. We're working on a new season of Catfish. I'm not sure when that's coming, but it's coming. And I've got there's a Catfish podcast people can check out if they are into podcasts, which I assume they
Oh,
are.
cool.
And yeah, just get people excited about running. Right? If you're not a runner, get outside, go for a run. You'll feel great. I promise.
Go do bar mitzvahs, get some skills,
Right.
take
Yes.
pictures, do weddings, and run. And don't get scammed. I think that's the big
Try.
takeaways
Right.
from this.
Don't. Right. Exactly.
Brother, I
Well,
appreciate
Greg,
your
gotta
time.
heads
Thank
up.
you so much, man.
Take
All
care.
right, take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.